Lawmakers in New York State Senate last night passed the so-called raise the age legislation, increasing the age of criminal responsibility from 16 to 18. That means 16 and 17-year-olds will no longer be charged as adults and face perilous conditions in places like the dangerous and notorious Rikers Island prison. It raises the age to 17 next fall and to 18 the following years. This advocate's video tells us why this has been such a long battle.
I can't vote.
I can't drink.
I can't smoke.
I can't join the military.
Because I'm 16, I can't sit on a jury, but I can be tried as an adult.
I can get a lifetime criminal record.
New York's Governor Andrew Cuomo had already written a proposal to raise the age into his budget this year, and it seems likely he'll sign the legislation when it reaches his desk.
This is a situation that is intolerable for all of us. Rikers is New York City's jail. It is savage, inhumane, and revolting. 7,000 inmates are held. Many of them 16 and 17, many of them waiting for years just to have their day in court, and many of them subject to being beaten, raped, or even killed.
Oh, let's discuss it with Angelo Pinto, senior attorney for the Advancement Project, member of the Justice League of New York City. Also, still with us, A. Scott Bolden, of course, attorney here in D.C. Also, Ngozi Ndulu, senior director of criminal justice programs for the NAACP. Angelo, first of all, I'm not going to give Governor Andrew Cuomo lots of credit because he's been dragging his feet. He's been screwing around on this, not really pushing this thing hard. And so it was the advocates out there who were putting the pressure on state legislators to make this happen. He, frankly, has failed the people of New York when it comes to this issue.
Definitely. I always tell folks, justice delayed is justice denied, especially around raise the age. This is the third year that the governor was supposed to get it done. For 2 years, he hasn't. If it wasn't for the Assemblyman Carl Hastie, Speaker of the Assembly, really saying, I won't budge on the New York State budget, without this, it wouldn't have got done. The budget was about a week late, which is something Cuomo does not like at all. And it was because advocates said, if we don't raise the age, everyone will have hell to pay. So.
And what we're dealing with here is, I mean, look, we know the stories. Khalif Browder, this young man accused of stealing a backpack, spends a ridiculous amount of time in prison, eventually released, later commits suicide because of the sheer hell and torture he went through in Rikers Island.
Yep, and as we always say, every year, thousands of Khalif Browders. You could go back a little further. When you look at the Central Park Five, same issue. Young folks being prosecuted as adults in New York State. The very interesting thing about those two folks, which the governor won't talk about, is both of them were not convicted of anything. The Central Park Five were convicted, and then, of course, they said, hold on, wait, these young folks didn't do the crime. So a tremendous amount of wrongful convictions is what we see with 16 and 17-year-olds, the most vulnerable population in the criminal justice system.
Now, here's what I don't understand. So next year it gets raised to 17, then 18 the following year. Why not just make it 18 next year?
Because the government in New York State likes to drag its feet. It's another example of the governor not doing the right thing. And unfortunately, the state legislature not saying, you know what, we won't tolerate that. We need it done now.
You know, Roland, I lived with this as a former prosecutor in Manhattan in the late 80s, early 90s. The abuse and the beating, if you see the results when they come to court for arraignments and for hearings and what have you, whether they've got lawyers or not, the system just eats these kids up. And I agree with you. This is such a objective issue. Why even drag it along even further? There's only one other state that tries 16 and 17-year-olds as adults, and New York is so progressive on so many other issues. I just don't get there's a disconnect between why they won't just charge them as adults when they're 18, 19, or even 21 for that matter.
And of course, in this bill, they raise the age of criminal responsibility from 16 to 18. All misdemeanors and most non-violent felonies handled in family court, violent felonies in youth part of criminal court subject to test of seriousness of offense. Ngozi, when you, again, I mean, this is a perfect example of a nation that has been absolutely crazy and schizophrenic when it comes to its laws. And we have had to live with this law and order mentality, especially impacting black folks, since slavery was abolished. And we've seen this And finally, in 2017, we're literally still having to fix these errors?
Well, I think that we are living with this legacy in 2017, and I think, you know, recent events make us more realistic about where we are as far as race and the criminal justice system, right? We cannot dissociate where we are today from the legacy of slavery and the way that the criminal justice system has taken over as a way of creating and maintaining second-class citizenry, right? So, and we know that this is starting young, you know, and we also can't keep our decisions on criminal justice away from what we think generally about children. We know that we don't treat black boys as children in the same way as we do white boys, right? We know that people are, when they're tested on implicit bias, they're seeing black boys as less human, older, more culpable, and we see that the results of that in our criminal justice system. We see that we are actually treating folks as adults when we know that they do not have that capability. Even when we're getting into, you know, 18, 19, 20, their still brains are developing here, and we need to keep that keep that in mind. And I think just in the future, we're going to have to look at even places where there's some type of discretion about getting those 16 and 17-year-olds into the criminal justice system. We have to look deeper at that and look at prosecutorial discretion in that context.
But it doesn't work either. When we lock them up, we lose them. You want to solve criminal justice issues, you want to get rid of crime in this country and get rid of the prison complex, then it's called jobs, job training, entrepreneurship, education. Those are the underlying social issues that can resolve these issues, whether it's rural America or the inner city. It's so simple. It's far less costly, because when we lose them, how can they contribute to society or the economics and all the things that make us strong as a nation and a country and cities and communities if we just lock them up and lose them? They've got to contribute something, but when we lock them up, their future looks a lot more bleaker, one, but two, we know the recidivism rate for the younger you get locked up, the more likely when you get out, based on what you've learned in prison, you're going to do it again. And
you have so many barriers, right? Now that you've been in the criminal justice system, you can't get the employment, you can't get the housing, you can't get the education.
Then we force you into this criminal element.
A peaceful protest turned deadly. 37-year-old black man was shot and killed by Baton Rouge police. His hands are in the air, and you still get shot by the cops.
Oh my God, please don't tell me he's dead.
We're not going to let hate define us.
Race is a big part of this.
If truly all lives matter, then all lives need to matter equally.
What we require is action. What we require is accountability. We understand that black lives do matter, and we will keep focused on this issue.
NewsOne Now, every weekday morning at 7 on TV1.